of housekeeping, and it's a housekeeping item they claim to legislate equal salaries for all ministers. This bill fails to ensure that all ministers are created equal. I see I'm getting the wrap-up sign, so I will continue, I guess, after question period, Speaker. Thank you.
The honourable member for Halliburton, Courtelet, Brock will have 2.5 minutes following question period, and I thank him for wrapping up his comments for the moment. Statements by members. Déclaration de député. L'honorable député.
The honourable member for Joliette. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You can see it in the news still. Every time Quebec acts like a distinct society, Canada climbs the walls. The best example was 25 years ago with the total rejection of the Charlottetown Accord on the future of Quebec and Canada. Quebecers and Canadians said no. Quebecers because it didn't go far enough to protect our distinct society. And Canada because every time Quebec is given an inch, that's too much. The political scene was forever transformed. The independence movement took off with the election of 54 Bloc Québécois members the following year. Quebecers spoke loudly enough for the Bloc Québécois to form the official opposition, but basically things never change. We saw this when Philippe Couillard wanted to rediscuss Quebec's place in Canada just before being humiliated by the Prime Minister. 25 years later, the faces have changed, but Quebec and Canada continue to say no to one another. The honourable member for Avignon-Lamétis-Matane-Matapédia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. George Harrison, Paul Lemieux, Pierre Vicaire, Véronique Pelletier, Hermel Galland, Jean-Yves Lebrun, Jean-Guy Dionne, Réginald Morissette, Laurette de Champlain, Madeleine Perrault, Édouard Lausier, Jean-Yves Thériault, Daniel Marcoux, Jacqueline Paquet, Marielle Roya, André Métivier, Lucie Lapointe, Marie-Brigitte Lehoulier, Enrico Carpinteri, Serge Gendron, and Rodrigue Boulian are outstanding individuals in my riding whom I gave a lapel pin marking the 150th anniversary of the Confederation of Canada at 2 ceremonies on October 13th in Amqui and Carleton-sur-Mer. The purpose of these ceremonies was to recognize the substantial contributions made by these individuals to the development of our region. I'd like to take this opportunity here in the House to thank them once again for their commitment, leadership, and dedication to our community. You are a source of great enrichment for our riding. Congratulations and thank you.
Member for Yellowhead.
Mr. Speaker, on October 16, the province of Alberta held its municipal elections. I would like to thank all the candidates in Yellowhead who put their names forward to serve on their local municipal or county councils. To those re-elected or who won, congratulations. You are entering one of the best forms of governing. You will be part of a team that sets directions, goals, and policies for your community. Be proud of what you have accomplished. Enjoy the rewards of serving your constituents. Whether you are one of our small summer resort villages or one of our large county councils, you will play a very instrumental role in governing your community. As a former councillor and mayor, my advice to all of you is to listen to your constituents and work together as a team on your council. The rewards are worth the effort. Thank you.
The honourable member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take this opportunity today in connection with Women's History Month to underscore the significant contributions of women farmers to Quebec's agriculture. I'd like to give a shout out to the Federation on its 30th anniversary. They'll be holding a tribute to showcase the significant contributions of female farmers who stand out for their dedication, enthusiasm, and hard work. Women often play various roles on farms, accounting, and others. They make a valuable contribution to agriculture, and this wouldn't be possible without agriculture's success would not be possible without women's contributions. I'd invite all my colleagues to salute the dedication of women farmers, and I'd like to thank all this year's candidates for awards. Thank you.
I want to remind members before we go on that props are not permitted in the House and not to be holding up props when one is making any statements. The honourable member for London Fanshawe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For Women's History Month, I want to honour the women who took risks and fought for a woman's right to control her own body. It was Canadian women like Dorothea Palmer, who was arrested for distributing contraception information and devices, and Elizabeth Bagshaw, who illegally operated the first birth control clinic in Canada between 1932 and 1966. She paved the way for our access to birth control today. Unfortunately, there are still barriers to accessing contraception. From a human rights perspective, birth control shouldn't be accessible just to those who can afford it. My motion, M65, calls on the government to collaborate with the provinces to provide free access to prescribed birth control. Full control of our reproductive health rights is an essential step towards equality. If the government truly supports human rights and gender equality, it would and should make prescription birth control free for Canada 150.
The honourable member for Châteauguay-Lacolle. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to take the floor to highlight an accomplishment involving my riding and my colleague from La Prairie's too. In connection with Canada 150, Maison Le Payeur in Châteauguay and Kahnawake Tourism organized a very popular event last month, the first edition of the Corn Festival. I was thrilled to attend this festival celebrating the French, English, and Indigenous heritage our region was built on.
Mr. Speaker, this first ever festival, hosted by Kahnawake and Châteauguay, celebrated that wonderful gift of nature, corn, and featured the history of its use and cultivation, much music and dance, and of course, juicy local corn, boiled, broiled, and popped. This collaboration between Kahnawake and Châteauguay is building relationships between our two communities, and we look forward to future collaborations in the sacred spirit of reconciliation. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Red Deer Mountain View.
Mr. Speaker, this November, my riding of Red Deer Mountain View will once again host one of Canada's biggest agricultural trade shows. The Agri-Trade Equipment Expo is a joint venture between the Red Deer District of Commerce and Westerner Park. From November 8th to 11th, Agri-Trade will host over 470 exhibitors representing the very best in agricultural equipment, technology, services, and products from not only Canada but from around the world. This is an opportunity for everyone to see how our Canadian farmers and producers ensure that the food on our tables is the best in the world. Our Canadian ag industry is vibrant and innovative, contributing more than $100 billion to our economy. I encourage everyone to come to Agri-Trade to Red Deer's Westerner Park to learn more about Canada's innovative farming techniques and meet the hard-working farmers and producers growing our food.
The honourable member for Eglinton Lawrence.
Monsieur le Président, aujourd'hui je...
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the Access to Justice group.
Engage the public on how to leverage innovation in the legal profession to reduce systemic barriers and to provide better access to justice for children in poverty. In the last year, our government has supported these laudable goals by adding $2.7 million in addition to the $11.5 million in legal aid funding, in particular to help refugee and asylum seekers. In family law, we committed $107.8 million over 5 years to provide more mediation and more child services. Quant au droit criminel, nous...
As for criminal law, we're updating the sexual assault laws so that victims can have confidence that they will get justice.
15 court appointments with more women, more diversity, and more talent on the bench. This has the effect of reducing court delays and improving access to justice. I want to commend the Action Group and the Law Society for all their work, and when it comes to access to justice in this government, they will always have a great ally.
The honourable member for Richmond Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Richmond Hill, the Canada 150 celebration continues on. There were even actually more reasons to celebrate that this year also coincides with a number of bicentennial anniversaries. Alongside my community, on October 15th, I was pleased to celebrate the 200th congregational anniversary of Richmond Hill Presbyterian Church, and on October 22nd, the 200th year anniversary of the birth of Baha'u'llah. For 2 centuries, our Presbyterian Church, located at the heart of Richmond Hill, has been providing invaluable community and worship services to congregation of 200 plus from over 30 different countries, and it continues to do so today with the support and dedication of the Reverend Duncan Jeffrey and its members. Today, millions of people of Baha'i faith around the world follow the spiritual and social teaching of Baha'u'llah. Mr. Speaker, as we continue to celebrate this significant occasion, I'm reminded of the unique values of diversity and freedom that makes this country so great. Thank you.
Hey, bravo.
The Honourable Member for Provencher.
Mr. Speaker, in this free and democratic country, we have so much to be thankful for. I'm first and foremost thankful for a God that loves us and was willing to send his son Jesus to pay the settlement for our sin, and how through faith in him we can receive that gift. I'm thankful for my wife. I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful to have the opportunity to represent my constituents of Provencher. And Mr. Speaker, as the harvest winds down across this country, I'm thankful for our farmers. In Canada, we are blessed with the abundance of land with which to farm. But without the hard work and dedication of our farmers, that blessing would not be fully realized. Farmers are incredibly talented, Mr. Speaker. They're conservationists, they're veterinarians, they're mechanics, and they're even meteorologists. I want to thank our farmers today for providing us with safe, nutritious, and delicious food. Food doesn't just show up on our store shelves miraculously, but it's through the hard work and dedication of our farmers. Mr. Speaker, often in our abundance here in Canada, it is easy to take our farmers for granted. Today, I want to make sure that farmers across this great country know that we are thankful for them. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Thunder Bay, Rainy River.
Mr. Speaker, last week a Canadian curling team made up of Thunder Bay's Trevor Bono, Corey Carr, Megan Carr, and Stratton's Jackie McCormick won a silver medal for Canada at the World Mixed Curling Championships in Switzerland. Team Canada went undefeated throughout the round robin and playoffs and earned their spot in the final with a 5-3 win over Norway that came down to the last rock. The final game, which saw Canada close a 5-2 gap to 5-4 in the 7th, ended with Scotland taking the gold and Team Bono bringing home a very impressive silver. Wow. This team showed incredible dedication in the months leading up to the championship, with members living across northwestern Ontario. This medal was hard-earned and well-deserved, and I'm glad to be joining Canadians across the country and congratulating you all.
Honorable Député d'Edmonton South.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Centre.
To celebrate an organization that fosters entrepreneurship, shares ideas, and builds leaders. Young Presidents Organization, or YPO, is a global organization through which chief executives engage across borders, share experiences, and learn from one another. It has more than 25,000 members from around the globe. Today, we are joined by members from my corner of the world. YPO Alberta chose to host their annual chapter retreat in our nation's capital to celebrate Canada's 150th birthday. YPO has had 6 decades of success connecting diverse leaders from across the globe. Their mission, build better leaders through lifelong learning and idea exchange, reminds me of the work that we do here every day, empowering, pushing, and even cajoling each other to be better leaders for a better Canada. Please join with me to welcome friends, colleagues, and community leaders from Alberta and Saskatchewan. We are very happy to have you here, my friends. Bienvenue, Ottawa. Welcome to Ottawa.
I'm afraid I have to remind my honourable friend from Edmonton Centre to address his comments to the chair, and that only the chair recognizes people in the gallery. The honourable member for Calgary Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, the performing arts contribute a bright swath to the cultural fabric of my home of Calgary. The Arts Commons in Calgary offers multiple performing spaces and is an important venue for artists. The Arts Commons is a member venue of the Performing Arts Centre Consortium, the executive members of which are visiting Ottawa today for their fall meeting and indeed are in the Chambers Gallery right now. Among the CEOs of the 35 largest performing arts centres in North America is this year's chairman of the consortium, Johan Zietzman, who is also president of Calgary's Arts Commons and a good friend. Mr. Speaker, the member groups of the consortium make enormous contributions to Canadian culture and the arts. These groups enrich the lives of Canadians and contribute to the unique energy of our cities. I would like to thank members of the consortium for their ongoing work in promoting the arts across North America.
The Honourable Member for Laval-les-Îles.
The Catholic Church, in communion with Rome since the 18th century, adheres to the Byzantine tradition and has its seat in Damascus, Syria. His Beatitude Joseph Apsi, Archbishop of Damas and the Patriarchal Vicar, was installed as Patriarch of the Melkite Catholic Church, which has nearly 2 million followers in Syria, Lebanon, and around the world. We are honored to have Patriarch Apsi visiting Parliament Hill today. On behalf of my colleagues in the House of Commons in Canada, it is my privilege to wish him a warm welcome to Canada. Je veux souhaiter.
I'd like to wish Monsignor Absi, a skilled communicator, every success as patriarch of his followers. I'd also like to wish every bit as much success to the senior clergymen here, esteemed representatives of the Melkite Church. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, more and more Canadians are experiencing the harsh reality of losing their pension and benefits when a company goes bankrupt. 16,000 Sears Canada employees are worried there won't be any money left to pay their pensions after Sears completes its bankruptcy proceedings, especially after company executives rake in their millions in bonuses. For anyone who worked for U.S. Steel or Nortel, this is an all-too-familiar story. Far too many companies in Canada are hiding behind the outdated bankruptcy legislation that puts workers at the end of the line. As a result, severance is lost, benefits are cut, and workers only get a fraction of the pension they've earned. When a pension is ripped off this way, it's gone for good. And for retirees, it amounts to nothing less than legalized theft. Yes. Mr. Speaker, unless this government takes immediate action to protect workers' pensions, their jobs are on the line next.
The honourable member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
I was blocked from participating in student government because of my Jewish identity and my affiliations with Jewish organizations. This quote was not written in the middle of pre-war Europe, but 2 days ago by a student at McGill University. Noah Liu wrote these words after being removed from the Student Society at McGill University for voicing opposition to the university's boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. And this was done in public by his peers and with applause. Shame. So let me call this for what it is. It is anti-Semitism and it is wrong. Absolutely. To the people and the students who participate in this anti-Jew, non-respectful, anti-tolerant, anti-democratic, and divisive debacle, give your head a shake. Today, we're here to tell you that Canadians will not allow the intolerance you demonstrated to take root in Canada's pluralism. Today, parliamentarians of all political stripes stand here and against your hate. Your anti-Jewish tripe has no quarter here or with the people that we represent. Noah, today we stand with you.
Member for Surrey Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to remember Jesse Cadman, born in 1976 in my hometown of Surrey. Today, Jesse would have been my age. However, 25 years ago, at the young age of 16, he was murdered at the hands of a young offender for simply wearing a hat that they did not like. In the wake of their son's death, Jesse's parents, Chuck and Donna, showed inspiring bravery, strength, and grace. Both of them went on to serve in this House of Commons. Inside and outside these walls, they worked tirelessly to protect victims' rights, reform our justice system, and tackle the pressing issues of gang and youth violence. The work of the Cadmans should stand as an inspiration to all MPs as we work to ensure that no parent ever experiences the trauma Chuck and Donna endured. Thank you.
Questions orales, oral questions. The honourable member for Carleton.
Ministers are banned from owning stocks. That's because we don't want them to use their power to help the companies they own or inside information to unduly profit. This minister used a loophole to get around that ban by just putting the stocks in a numbered company in Alberta. Simple question. Has this minister owned other stocks in his numbered companies?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, it's important that Canadians have confidence in our government. I had a constructive discussion with the Ethics Commissioner this morning. I informed her of my continuing goal of working with her. I also told her of my intent to sell all my family's shares in my former family firm, Warner Chappell, to move forward with a blind trust. And I told her it was the intent of myself and my family to donate any difference in value in my family shares from the time I was elected on October 19th, 2015, until now. This is the way that we will keep confidence
in our government. The honourable member for Carleton. Order.
Thank the minister for his answer. If he hadn't owned those stocks over the last 2 years while ministers are banned from owning stocks, then he wouldn't have had those profits in the first place. Can he confirm now if he will donate the resulting tax savings that he will enjoy from the charitable tax credit to help pay off his deficit?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, it's so important that Canadians have confidence that we're working for them on their behalf. That's why, on this side of the House, we lift up to the highest standards of integrity. That's why I'm taking forward and taking these steps, which I know will help Canadians to have real confidence in our government. And I do hope that all members of this House will consider their affairs in a similar fashion, making sure that they can hold up to scrutiny and do it in a way that has confidence of Canadians that we're working on their behalf.
The honourable member for Carleton.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the reality is this minister was caught holding an offshore company without referring it to the Ethics Commissioner. Then he was caught by Canadians continuing to own shares in his family business. Now, after being caught, he's put that money in a blind trust, but he's asking us to blindly trust him about the roughly half dozen other numbered companies he continues to own. Why doesn't he just tell us what is inside those companies?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said to this House, the confidence of Canadians is so important in what we're doing. As I've also said, I've worked with the Ethics Commissioner and followed her recommendations. As I've said, I'm going to go farther than that. What's really important, Mr. Speaker, is that allows us to do the work that we do on behalf of Canadians, allows us to keep growing the economy, allows us to keep growing jobs for Canadians across our country. We are in an excellent situation right now where we can actually ensure Canadians continue to be successful, with an increase in the Canada Child Benefit, with an increase in the working income tax benefit. This will help Canadians over the long term.
The honourable member for Richmond-Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to give you a simple mathematical equation. If A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. So, A, the Minister of Finance, gave $400 million to Bombardier. B, Bombardier is a client of Warner Chappell. C, the Minister of Finance has been collecting $65,000 in monthly dividends since he became minister. That's called the QED principle in math. What was to be shown? Need I say more so that the minister understand that he is in a conflict of interest? The Honourable Minister for Economic Development.
Clear. A, we believe in the aerospace sector. B, we believe in aerospace sector jobs. C, we believe in growth. D, we believe in investing in employees in Canada, Mr. Speaker. That's what we've been doing. All of the above, Mr. Speaker. We'll continue to invest in the aerospace sector. We'll continue to make sure we have good quality jobs in Canada, Mr. Speaker. That's the bottom line.
delighted that members know their letters. I encourage them to remember to know the standing orders and not to interrupt. The honourable member,
The honourable member
Richmond Athabasca.
for Richmond Athabasca. Thank you. This is so fascinating to see how proud the Liberals are to support the aerospace sector in Alabama and the United States. Mr. Speaker, Morneau Shepell, let's get back to basics here. Morneau Shepell has interests in Bombardier, the Bank of Canada, the Canada Revenue Agency, the Senate, CATSA, and the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. That totals for Morneau Shepell $14 million worth of contracts with the government. What more is it going to take to understand that the Minister of Finance is in a conflict of interest? The Honourable Minister for Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite is absolutely correct. Of course we support the aerospace sector. These are 208,000 good quality jobs that on average pay 60% more than other manufacturing jobs. This is an industry that contributes $28 billion into our economy. This is an industry that helps our small and medium-sized enterprises. 800 suppliers across the country, Mr. Speaker, will continue to defend the aerospace sector, will continue to invest in employees, and will continue to make sure the economy continues to grow.
Honourable Member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-Les-Basques.
Mr. Speaker, I could not care less about the finance minister's fortune. What I do care about is governance and plain old-fashioned common sense. And common sense is telling us that the finance minister controlled, directly or indirectly, a massive interest in Morneau Shepell. And the finance minister tabled Bill C-27, for which he actually lobbied prior to him being elected in this House. And because Bill C-27 would benefit Morneau Shepell, he stood to benefit from this transaction. How can he not see that this constitutes conflict of interest?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I will continue to work on behalf of Canadians. That's what we were elected to do. We very clearly said when we came into office that we would focus on ensuring retirement dignity for Canadians. This is a broader goal. We've been working on it since day one. The enhancement of the Canada Pension Plan was a really important step for the future. Of course, moving back to age 65, the old age security, which was so quickly moved to 67 by the previous government, was really important. And going one step further to help 900,000 seniors with an increase in the guaranteed income supplement was critically important. We will continue to fight for retirement dignity for Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
Order.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-Les-Basques.
Higher standards of ethics. Let's see how it fares.
In 2002, the Minister of National Defence had to resign from the Liberal cabinet because of a $36,500 contract awarded to a company belonging to his ex-girlfriend. And the same year, the Solicitor General had to resign from the Liberal cabinet because he had awarded a $6.5 million contract to a college where his brother was a principal. Morneau Shepell's share of profits, including the $1 million or $2 million held by the Minister of Finance, jumped to 5% after Bill C-27 was tabled. How can he not see that this is a conflict of interest? What's his definition of a conflict of interest? Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, confidence in our government is very important to us. What I said is that I am going to continue to follow the recommendations of the Ethics Commissioner. I'm going to go above and beyond. I'm going to sell my family's shares in the company. I will have a blind trust. And I also stated today that my family and myself decided that we would donate the difference in value of our shares since I came to this position. That is what we are going to do. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, earlier this year, this House voted unanimously in favour of Rona Ambrose's bill on sexual assault training for judges. This training is absolutely necessary to raise awareness amongst judges and to encourage women to come forward in cases of sexual assault and harassment. It is more important to act quickly now on this file. Unfortunately, the bill has now been stalled in the Senate. It is absolutely unacceptable that an unelected Senate be able to stall an initiative that was unanimously passed in this House. Will the Prime Minister stand with us and call on the Senate to act rapidly so that Bill C-337 is passed?
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the question from the honourable member. Sexual assault is completely unacceptable, and our government has an unwavering commitment to ensure that victims of sexual assault are treated with fairness, with dignity, and with respect. I was incredibly proud to stand with all members in this House to move forward the private member's bill C-337 into the other place. I hope that this moves forward to provide the necessary training and encourage necessary training for the judiciary, and recognize that we will continue, in absence of that, to do everything we can as a government to ensure that we provide.
The honourable member for Hamilton Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, more is possible. The Liberals just need the backbone to make it happen. Everyone knows our bankruptcy legislation is failing to protect Canadian workers. Workers know it, companies know it, we know it, and so do the Liberals. In fact, a Liberal member of Don Valley West said this legislation needs to be amended and that he hopes the government looks into it. So again, will the Liberals do what's right and change bankruptcy and insolvency laws? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the member for his advocacy and his hard work. I understand the concerns that he's raising with respect to pensions, and we as a government have been very clear that we support secure pensions as well. That's why we introduced the Canada Pension Plan and enhancements to that. And that's why we'll work with Sears employees during this difficult time. That's why we've also held 82 different sessions through Service Canada to assist these employees during this difficult time as well. We'll continue to make sure that we have secure pensions and assist workers as they go through bankruptcy, through the bankruptcy process, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance told us that he recused himself twice from discussions, given all the conflict of interest situations he has found himself in. The problem is that Canadians are having trouble believing him. There are many conflicts of interest, starting with, say, Bill C-227, C-27, that he tabled, given his dealings with Bombardier and other issues. To solve this once and for all, will the Finance Minister disclose all his assets so that Canadians will know what all his conflict situations are? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I think it's very important to work with the Ethics Commissioner in order to make sure that she is fully aware of our situation. That's exactly what I did. I followed her recommendations, and I said that I am going to do even more. As I said, I am going to sell my Morneau Chapelle shares. I am also going to take another step. I am going to donate the difference in value of these shares since I was elected. That is very important.
Order. Honorable Député.
The honourable member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance is admitting then that he was in a conflict of interest. That's why he's doing this, and I'm sure there are other conflicts of interest. Canadians are having trouble believing him. They want to know the whole truth. Now, I understand that the Minister of Finance thought he could just keep his assets to himself, but since he has become minister, since he was elected, his assets actually concern all Canadians. Did the minister recuse himself other times when he was in a conflict of interest? The Honourable Minister of Finance.
I think it's very important that Canadians have confidence in our government and that we're working for them. And we know that we can assure them of that situation because we work together with the Commissioner to make sure that she understands all of our situations. For all members of this House, I can say that I will continue to work hard on behalf of Canadians, making sure that, as I have not had for the last 2 years, I don't have conflicts of interest going forward. That's critically important. That allows us to get at the very important work that we're doing on behalf of Canadians difference for families today and tomorrow.
Order. The honourable member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, the Finance Minister lobbied for target benefit pension plans while he was the Executive Chair of Morneau Shepell, which manages those exact plans. Days after he himself tabled a bill that sets them up, his company's stock's value jumped by millions of dollars. But the PM and the Finance Minister see nothing wrong with using public powers to grow private family fortunes. Meanwhile, Canadians have no idea what else the minister's hiding in his many other numbered companies and trust funds. It's time for him to come clean. What else is the minister hiding?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we do have a process in this country, we do have a process in this House for dealing with our assets. All the members of this House, ministers at this House, ministers before me have dealt with it in a similar way. That's working with the Commissioner of Ethics. That is what I've done. In following all of her recommendations, I've assured Canadians that I'm meeting up to their high standards. I've decided to go further. I've decided not only to sell all of my and my family's assets in the company I built with my father for 25 years, I've also decided to donate any difference in value in those shares from the time I was elected until now. Working together with the Ethics Commissioner will allow us to continue.
I want to remind members that, of course, when they're heckling, they may be taking a question away from one of their colleagues. The honourable member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, last week a spokeswoman for Morneau Shepell admitted those new target benefit plans will increase work for the firm. So the minister's law benefits the minister's family company that's been paying him the whole time. And it turns out Morneau Shepell also does pension work for Bombardier. Of course, the PM and the Finance Minister gave hundreds of millions of tax dollars to Bombardier. What a tangled web we weave. Will the Finance Minister be honest with Canadians and finally reveal what else he's hiding?
Honourable Minister of Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, why do the opposition continually undermine the aerospace sector? When our government stood up and said we're going to contribute $372.5 million for more research and development, they opposed that. When our aerospace sector was under attack by the U.S. and particularly by Boeing, they went missing. And now, Mr. Speaker, we're trying to work with the company to make sure they have greater market access. And again, they're trying to undermine the aerospace sector. We will defend aerospace sector jobs. We will defend the aerospace sector suppliers, Mr. Speaker, because it's important for our economy.
The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
Mr. Speaker, if it was up to the Finance Minister, Canadians would have never known that he was both an owner of Morneau Shepell and the regulator. And now he wants us to throw him a parade for 2 years later, having finally done what he said he was going to do the first day he took office. Right. He has a conflict of interest because of his Morneau Shepell shares, which are sheltered in a numbered company. He has 7 or 8 more such numbered companies hiding his other assets. When will he finally come clean with Canadians and reveal all of his assets so they can determine how many conflicts of interest he's in?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I fully understand why the members opposite want to obsess on my personal situation. What they don't want is Canadians to hear about the rosy economic picture that we presented this week. We presented Canadians with a situation that really has not been one they've seen since before the previous government, and that is a growth rate that's the best in a decade. What they've also seen is more jobs for them and their families. So the level of confidence in our country is going up. That's what's allowing us to continue to invest and put our faith in Canadians. We'll continue to do that and not obsess about things that really aren't about our big objective, making a difference for Canadians.
The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Canadians don't have faith in this minister because he misled them when he said he would put his assets in a blind trust. He forgot that he had Morneau Shepell shares when he was the regulator. He forgot about his French villa in an offshore corporation, and now we should just believe him that he has no more conflict of interest, Mr. Speaker. Canadians don't believe this minister, so why doesn't he just come clean, disclose all of his assets so Canadians can know how many more conflicts of interest he's in?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, as the member opposite well knows, the way that we work in this House is we work with the Ethics Commissioner to make sure that she understands at a very, very granular level all of our assets. And that is exactly what I did. By disclosing all of my assets, I allowed her to provide me recommendations, which I followed.
A member for Calgary, Rocky Ridge, I'd ask to come to order and not to be heckling throughout the answer.
The Honourable Member for Apidi-Témiscamingue. Mr. Speaker, even though his government ignored 3 court orders on appropriate funding levels for health services for Indigenous children, yesterday the Minister of Indigenous Services said that, in fact, it's the provinces that should have been brought before the Human Rights Tribunal. If that's how the Liberals treat their most important relationship, imagine how they're treating others. It's not the provinces who were found guilty of discrimination, it was this government. When will the Liberals stop blaming others, take responsibility, and end discrimination? Honourable Minister.
Member opposite, as well as all members in this House, recognize the very severe circumstances that Indigenous children are facing, with more than 50% of the children in care in this country being Indigenous children. We have to all work together to address this very serious problem. That requires Indigenous leaders, it requires the federal government, it requires provinces and territories and child and family services agencies. We've got to get this right, and everyone needs to be involved.
Honourable Member for Timmins, James Bay.
Mr. Speaker, their names are Chantal Fox and Joanne Winter. They were 12 years old and they were loved. And this government was found culpable in their deaths. Specifically, the minister's department's refusal to respond in what was known to be a, quote, life and death situation. So the minister is in federal court, not to clarify, but to, quote, quash the order. $6 million of taxpayers' money has been wasted fighting First Nation children in court. So for Chantal, for Jolynn, for all the other children falling through the crack, will this minister just call off your lawyers and do the right thing and end that federal court case today?
The honourable member for Timmins, James Bay, is an experienced member and knows that he should be redirecting his comments to the chair. The honourable minister for Indigenous Services.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind the member opposite the lengths to which we have gone to make sure that Jordan's principle is fully implemented. This makes sure that every child will get access to the care they need. Up until our government took power, we did not have resources for this. We now have hundreds of millions of dollars of resources. Close to 19,000 cases have been requested. We are working to make sure that every child will get access to the care they need and making sure that it's done right.
I'm afraid I have to ask the honourable member for North Island, Palace River not to be heckling throughout the answer. And the honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
Mr. Speaker, not only did the finance minister mislead Canadians about putting his investments in a blind trust, today the Globe and Mail is reporting that the minister's so-called ethical screen is being enforced by his political staff, not Finance Canada officials. The finance minister keeps saying that Canadians should trust the ethics commissioner, but what he's really telling us to do is trust his Liberal staff. Does the minister expect Canadians to trust a system that's being enforced by someone who was hired by and reports to the minister himself?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, for clarity, the Ethics Commissioner suggested a conflicts of interest screen. The way that screen is administered, which is consistent with the previous government's approach, is that the Department of Finance identifies the issues that should be put forward as conflicts of interest, and then that is administered through my Chief of Staff. Entirely consistent with approaches in the past. In my estimation, one that's been working and one that will continue to make sure works.
The honourable member for Barrie Innisfil. Order.
It's in fact not at all consistent, Mr. Speaker. He hides behind this so-called ethical screen, but it turns out his political staffer is the only person enforcing it. Really, Mr. Speaker, an ethical screen needs to be enforced by departmental officials, not someone who relies on the minister for employment. This is a complete farce. We now know that for 2 years, the only person policing the minister's ethics is his senior political staffer. When will the finance minister disclose what else he's hiding in the web of numbered companies to finally ensure that no more conflicts of interest exist?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know what to say other than the member opposite is flat out wrong. The situation that we've been using has been an appropriate conflict of interest screen as recommended by the Ethics Commissioner. What I've said is we're going to go farther. This is the way that we get confidence from Canadians to continue doing the work that we want to do. The reason we're getting deflected on these sorts of issues is because the members opposite don't want to acknowledge what their constituents are feeling. And that's confidence in our economy, confidence that their children and grandchildren are going to be better off. Because the things that we're doing, Mr. Speaker, they're making a real difference for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, Canadians aren't fools. What the Minister of Finance just said at the beginning of question period is very simple. In other words, for 2 years, he has been in a clear conflict of interest, and he only acts when he's caught with his hand in the cookie jar. That's what the Minister of Finance did, and it's unacceptable. Canadians aren't fools, Mr. Speaker. But we know what's been happening. For days and days, he's been saying, no, I'm fine, I have an ethics screen. Well, the ethics screen is his chief of staff. So how can we have confidence in that? Just like the Globe and Mail said this morning, when will the Minister of Finance act in the interests of all Canadians? The Honourable Minister of Finance.
To repeat, the Commissioner said that the conflicts of interest screen was the best measure to ensure that there were no conflicts. All I can assume is that the member opposite is actually questioning the Commissioner. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying is that the Commissioner's recommendations I follow, that I've decided to go several steps further. Mr. Speaker, this is what allows us to continue on the work that we're doing for Canadians, the work that we will, no matter what, continue making a real difference for families today. Things like the Canada Child Benefit, the Working Income Tax Benefit, they make a real difference and will help people to see better outcomes.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to help the Minister of Finance to understand, on behalf of all Canadians, when there's a conflict of interest, it takes a third party to help us think clearly, not your chief of staff, not the one who's on your payroll, someone who will think independently. And that's everything that didn't happen under the Minister of Finance. What is the Minister of Finance still hiding in terms of its other numbered companies? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, there is a reason why the member wants to talk about my finances. It's because he doesn't want to talk about the finances of Canadians, but that is what we want to do. We want to continue working for Canadians, all Canadians. And we have been absolutely clear. It's very important to improve the lives of Canadian families, to sustain strong economic growth. That's our goal. That's what's important to us, and that's what I'm going to continue doing.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, this morning La Presse revealed that Netflix employs 3 lobbying firms and that they met the Minister of Heritage 4 times in 5 months this spring. According to the Registry of Lobbyists, over 2 years, they had 13 meetings with 4 different departments, and with the Prime Minister's office, they didn't have any time to waste. They know who makes the decisions. These consultations are great with the consultation sector, but when it comes to who are we listening to, it has to be the Americans and Americans in matters of culture. Is this preferential treatment granted to Netflix and other web-based companies the minister's idea or the idea of lobbyists who live in her office and that of the Prime Minister? The Honourable Minister of Heritage, in the context of our consultations, we consulted over 30,000 people. And we've listened to the Francophone and Quebec cultural sectors. I hear their concerns. And that is exactly why we invested. We invested in the Canada Media Fund to make sure that we offer support to Francophone content on television. We invested $675 million in Radio Canada to make sure that we have a good public broadcaster in French. And we are going to modernize our legislation, the Broadcasting Act, the Communications Act, and protect our culture in the digital era. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, we know Netflix lobbied the Liberal government heavily in lead up to the deal they announced last month. A deal that is funded by increasing Netflix rates on Canadians, all the while letting this massive corporation keep its unfair advantage. Now we've learned that other digital giants like Google have lobbied this government 63 times. So are we going to see more sweetheart deals with these massive corporations? And why is this government so focused on preventing big businesses from paying their fair share?
The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
During the context of our
consultations, we heard from 30,000 people from across the country, and I've been in close contact with the cultural sector throughout the country. We announced some key investments in the context of our Creative Canada strategy. We were reinvesting in the Canada Media Fund. We're also reinvesting in CBC, $675 million. But more than that, Mr. President, we announced also our first cultural export strategy, $125 million more. And ultimately, we will be modernizing our Broadcasting Act, our Telecommunications Act, to make sure that we protect our culture. Thank you.
Honorable député d'Ottawa-Vanier.
Honourable Member for Ottawa-Vanier.
Our feminist Prime Minister is recognized around the world for our government's efforts to promote and defend women's rights. However, in my riding of Ottawa-Vanier, I hear many female public servants that the public sector healthcare plan doesn't support their choice of contraceptive. The plan only covers oral contraceptives. Can the President of the Treasury Board update this House on the measures he's taking to correct this situation? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank the member from Ottawa-Vanier for her question, but particularly for her leadership. Empowering women and respecting their rights, including their reproductive health rights, is what we do as a government. Women should have their choice of contraceptives. That is why my department has reached out to the public sector unions to make it clear that we agree non-oral contraceptives should be covered under the public service health care plan. And we will work with our public sector unions to make that happen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Mr. Speaker, even before the Finance Minister introduced his disastrous small business tax increases, the Liberals were already clawing back disability tax credits from people with type 1 diabetes. The 80% of people who were receiving the credit became the 80% denied. Why are the Liberals taxing the vulnerable to pay for their out-of-control spending? And will the minister immediately instruct her agents to return to the criteria used in April this year?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary and Minister of National Revenue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to ensuring that all Canadians have access to the credits and benefits to which they're entitled. Let me be absolutely clear, Mr. Speaker. There has been no change to the eligibility criteria for the DTC related to diabetes. Our government actually made it easier for Canadians to apply for the credit by allowing nurse practitioners to complete their patients' applications. Mr. Speaker, the concerns brought up by these groups are worrisome. We have already met with them, and we will continue to work with them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Kelly.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, Ms. Kat Grossman is a 27-year-old woman who was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 5 years ago. Not only does she now have to face the consequences of her illness, she now has to face the pettiness of the Liberal government, which is refusing her access to the tax credit for people with disabilities. What message did this government send to public servants that they're at the point of taking money from the most vulnerable? When will the government admit that is the only one responsible and return to Kat and all diabetics their money and their dignity? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, there has been no change to the eligibility criteria for DTC in relation to diabetes. We've heard the concerns raised by these groups. We've already met with them, and we will continue to work with them. The agency is currently hiring nurses to review the disability tax credit applications. And the first step of the process, Mr. Speaker, the Minister has asked the agency to improve its data collection for the credit in order to better understand the portrait of claims and decision-making process of the agency. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
Well, Mr. Speaker, this week both the Minister and the Prime Minister have insisted that neither the law nor its interpretation regarding the disability tax credit have changed in any way. But we know that the Liberals changed the application process in May to reduce tax credit approvals for type 1 diabetics. Will the Liberals finally admit that they are so desperate for cash that they are raising taxes on diabetics?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. let me be again absolutely clear. There has been no changes in terms of the eligibility criteria for DTC for people with diabetes. The concerns raised by the groups are worrisome. We've already met with them, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue to work with them. For the 10 years of the former Conservative government cut scientific research, including in diabetes, Mr. Speaker, we've actually invested $41 million in diabetes research. Our goal remains absolutely clear that Canadians will continue to receive the credits to which they're entitled to. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals continue to claim that there's been no change in policy, but yesterday I tried to table documents in the House which establish that in May of this year the process did in fact change. The Liberals refused to allow this evidence to be tabled. So having made a decision to raise taxes on diabetics, why are they now denying responsibility for their actions?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Is committed to ensuring that all Canadians have access to the credits and benefits to which they're entitled. Let me be absolutely clear, there has been no change to the eligibility criteria, to the DTC related to diabetes. Our government actually made it easier for Canadians to apply for credit by allowing nurse practitioners to complete their patients' applications, Mr. Speaker. The concerns that were brought by these groups are worrisome. We've already met with them, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue to work with them. Thank you.
The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Last week, the Minister of Health was at ground zero of the opioid crisis. She visited the downtown east side of Vancouver and heard from frontline workers about the brutal realities of this growing epidemic. For 12 months, we've been urging the Liberal government to declare this a national public health emergency, and for 12 months, they've refused. Shame. Today, Donald Trump declared this a public health emergency. How is it possible that this government has fallen behind the Trump administration in taking action to save lives?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
We are in a national public health crisis in Canada, and we are responding in a way that is comprehensive, collaborative, passionate, and evidence-based. We recently announced $7.5 million that will enhance the development of evidence-based practices that can be used when dealing with this crisis on the ground. To build on this investment in Budget 2017 and many actions to date, we will continue to bring forward evidence-based solutions to help save lives and turn the tide on this national public health crisis. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
No, Mr. Speaker, never once has the finance minister been straight with Canadians. Reporters had to dig to find out about his villa in France. 2 years after telling everyone he'd put his Morneau Chappelle shares in a blind trust, that he'd have to admit that that wasn't true. And now that he's been caught profiting from a bill that he himself introduced, he's trying to buy his way out of the problem. Maybe on Bay Street, when someone commits a crime, they just ask the judge, how much do I have to make the check out for? But it doesn't work that way in the House of Commons. This is an admission of guilt by no other means. So I ask...
I want to remind the member, as I said during the statements by members, that props are not permitted in the House of Commons. The honourable member for Calgary Signal Hill.
Oh, come on.
Mr. Speaker, the rules are very clear. When we are elected as members of this House, we are granted resources for the exclusive use of serving our constituents. They are not granted to benefit ourselves personally or our family members. The Calgary Herald is reporting that last Monday, which was coincidentally Civic Election Day in Alberta, that the Minister of Sport used House of Commons materials to support his father's campaign for school trustee. Through you, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask if the Minister was granted permission from the Ethics Commissioner to use House of Commons materials to enhance his father's electoral efforts.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, Minister of Sport and People's Disabilities.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Any discussion regarding the finances of Parliament need to be held within the rules and the standards. This is a new file. We are going to send it to the Ethics Commissioner. We're going to send all the information required and then determine a decision to be made. We are a transparent government.
Signal Hill, order.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that's well and good, but I want to know also from this particular Minister of Sport, he's also the Minister of the Crown and a member of Privy Council. And additional resources are granted to have that portfolio help all Canadian taxpayers. So I would like to know if the minister used any of his ministerial resources to try and help his father get elected as a school trustee.
Wow.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of Sport and Persons with Disabilities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I already said, it is very important in this House to respect the rules and laws and regulations. We know that we have an ethics commissioner that's going to answer all of those questions. If you have any criticisms, please report it to the ethics commissioner and we will answer.
Mr. Speaker, there's only one guarantee with this government. They can never take enough money from hardworking Canadians' pockets. They're raising taxes on diabetics. They're raising taxes on employee discounts. They're raising taxes on bus passes, kids' hockey, piano lessons. Yet this Minister of Sport, like all Liberals, always finds money to help himself and his friends, like the Minister did for his father. Why is the taxpayer on the hook for the Liberals' generosity to their friends and insiders?
Honourable Government House Leader.
I always appreciate the opportunity to rise in this place and to remind Canadians the important work that this government is doing. Historic investments in infrastructure by working with provinces, territories, and municipalities, lowering the tax rate on small businesses from 11% in 2015 to 9% in 2019. This government has given more money to families with children that need it most through the Canada Child Benefit to ensure that those families that need it are able to help grow this economy. This government will continue to make strategic investments to ensure that Canadians are succeeding. Those are the very people that we will continue to...
The order. The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the end of September, my office organized a roundtable with women involved in economic development in my riding. The Parliamentary Secretary for Trade was there, and it was an opportunity to discuss the challenges for women in business.
Gender equality, one of its most important priorities. Can the Minister tell this House what the government is doing to secure a better economic future for women in Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Status of Women.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my honourable colleague from Rivière-des-Mille for her leadership in advancing gender equality. Our government's efforts to empower women and girls is working. We're applying an intersectional gendered lens to every decision Cabinet makes. We are actively encouraging women and girls to enter STEM fields, and we're investing over $60 million in organizations across the country to do this work. Our most recent call for proposals is encouraging partnerships to advance and address systemic barriers to women's economic security. We encourage all eligible organizations to apply.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Somewhat ominously, Mr. Speaker, President Trump recently called upon Congress to, quote, improve infrastructure and security on the northern border. Our Minister of Public Safety was in the United States pleading with the Americans to help solve the illegal border crossing crisis, which we know has already created massive backlogs and a long-term impact on Canada's social assistance system. What he failed to do was even broach the topic of closing the loophole in the Safe Third Country Agreement with President Trump, which begs the question, when will the Prime Minister stand up to President Trump and for Canadian interests and make him close the loophole?
Wow. Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very glad to have this opportunity to note that last weekend at the G7 meetings in Italy, I had the opportunity for a bilateral discussion with the Acting Secretary of Homeland Security. We discussed a variety of issues pertaining to the Canada-U.S. relationship, including the value of our border, a border that accommodates 400,000 travelers every day, a border that accommodates $2.5 billion in trade every day, and a border which we are both dedicated to thinning, making more efficient and more secure for both countries.
The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Liberals voted against my bill on bilingualism of Supreme Court judges, even though they supported it 3 times when they were in opposition. Their argument was that the bill might be unconstitutional, even though several constitutional experts said the opposite. Even the Liberal member for Saint-Léonard-Saint-Michel told La Presse Canadienne that this constitutional argument doesn't hold up. Why didn't the Liberals defend official languages, especially Quebecers, Acadians, and Franco-Ontarians? Have their principles disappeared?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate standing up here to speak about the Supreme Court of Canada process that our Prime Minister put in place to not only appoint one Supreme Court justice, but moving towards supporting another Supreme Court justice in the very near future. Our Prime Minister and our government are fundamentally committed to appointing Supreme Court justices that are functionally bilingual, have the highest meritorious qualities, and represent the diversity of the country. I am very honoured to assist the Prime Minister in making this second choice for the next Supreme Court justice.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Scarborough-Guildwood.
Mr. Speaker, on October 17th, Russian President Vladimir Putin placed one of his fiercest critics, Bill Browder, on Interpol's most wanted list for the 5th time. It was removed a few hours ago for the 5th time. Mr. Browder led the campaign seeking justice for murdered Russian lawyer Sergei Magnitsky. The notice was submitted to Interpol one day after this Parliament unanimously passed Magnitsky legislation. Does the Minister of Public Safety believe this is an appropriate use of Interpol resources?
Honourable Minister.
No, Mr. Speaker. Canada vehemently disagrees with the Russian government's abuse and misuse of the Interpol listing system. The Kremlin does not determine admissibility to Canada. That is done by Canadian border officers implementing Canadian law. Bill Browder has a strong record of human rights advocacy, and the member for Scarborough-Guildwood has long made that very point. In 2015, Parliament unanimously supported Irwin Cotler's motion recommending the legislation Mr. Browder has been calling for, and we all unanimously adopted that legislation earlier this month.
Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, first this Liberal government left mention of Jews off the National Holocaust Memorial dedication plaque and muted the horrors of the extermination chambers with euphemisms. But now we learn the Liberals, who doubled their modest deficit with a runaway $20 billion, Liberals who spent almost $250,000 on an artsy budget cover, are economizing by not clearing snow at the National Holocaust Memorial. Mr. Speaker, the death camps operated year-round. Why shouldn't Canada's commemoration?
Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, we were proud to stand with members of both sides of this House to inaugurate the National Holocaust Memorial, which commemorates the 6 million Jews that were murdered during the Holocaust, along with other victims. And this government is completely committed to building a more inclusive society. I'm surprised to hear these concerns coming from the opposition, as these conversations were initiated under their watch. The NCC is responsible for the day-to-day operations and management of this monument, including snow removal.
Order. Some people want to go home, I'm sure. Allowed.
Order. The Honourable Member for Joliette. Mr. Speaker, only Quebec's National Assembly may legislate on matters under its jurisdiction, including the religious neutrality of the state. Not Toronto, Calgary, or Ottawa. It's for Quebec to decide. But it would seem that the Prime Minister has not yet understood. Can the Minister of Transportation explain to the Prime Minister that his government has no intention of getting involved in a law passed by the National Assembly? Because as it stands, it does not seem very clear. The Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, we know that in Canada, diversity is our strength. Canadians expect for our government to defend the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It's been said several times that it's not up to the state what a person can and cannot wear. We are going to follow the discussions that are ongoing in Quebec. And we want to carefully understand the application of the law that was recently passed. The Honourable Member for Repentigny. I'm not sure that's much more clear, Mr. Speaker. Instead of being briefed by the Minister of Heritage, the Prime Minister should perhaps listen to his Minister for Families. Yesterday, the Minister was clear and precise by saying that it's not up to the federal government to tell Quebec how to do things. It's not complicated. Quebec decides on its laws. Ottawa decides on its own. It's simple. Will the Prime Minister listen to his Minister for Families rather than his Minister for Heritage and let Quebec legislate in its own areas of jurisdiction? The Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, I understand that my colleague is very concerned by this matter and is doing politics with the matter. But our position has always been clear. We are going to make sure that the Charter of Rights and Freedoms is upheld. We are going to carefully study the application of the law that was passed by the National Assembly. We have often said, the Prime Minister has always said, again, during the last election, it's not up to the state to tell a person what they can and cannot wear.
And now I believe the Opposition House Leader, the Honourable Opposition House Leader, has the usual Thursday question. Oh, excuse me, the Honourable Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge is rising on a point of order. Or rising some question, please?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I would seek permission to table 2 documents that will establish that there in fact was a change of policy and process under which the applications for type 2 diabetics are processed.
There appears to be no consent. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
I thought that was a great idea. I'm just rising to ask that the Government House Leader would please share with us what we will be looking at for the remainder of this week and next week when we come back. Thank you.
Honourable Government House Leader. Order.
Mr. Speaker, in a few moments we will begin study of Bill C-17, the Yukon Act. Tomorrow we will begin a debate at third reading of Bill C-46, the Drug Impaired Driving Act.
Debating Bill C-49. On Wednesday, we will commence report stage of Bill C-45, the Cannabis Act. Finally, on